I'm just having my glass of water to get me ready.
Ciao bambini.
Good morning and welcome to our whole school assembly.
Hola!
Let's get some learning on.
Welcome to another day of home learning.
What time is it?
So we're going to work out the volume of this spring roll.
And they're all over the floor.
I consist of 95% water.
We learn grammar through the coolest tool, music.
Super goed.
Godt arbejde i dag, Leo.
I just need to keep it up. I'm so proud of you. It's well done.
Hello everyone and welcome on this Monday afternoon to the first in a series of webinars as we meet some of our Google for Education reference schools and focus on ways in which they're using the Google tools in their own settings to support teaching and learning. People haven't met me, my name's Andy Caffrey and I'm hosting today, but I'm really pleased to introduce on this call Gary Spracklen, who's the head teacher at the Prince of Wales School. Hi Gary.
Hello Andrew, well, wonderful to be with you on this sunny Monday afternoon.
It certainly is a sunny day, and firstly I want to say a big thank you for joining us. In terms of picking the craziest day in UK education, a long time ago we managed to choose the day that schools went back.
We did.
So,
what a perfect day to talk all about Google.
Firstly, welcome, and as people probably know, you're the head teacher at the Prince of Wales School. Obviously, I did my research, Gary, and I went on the internet and found some wonderful images of you from over the past, I think, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's an interesting and very recent collection that you've got there, Andrew.
Do you want to start by telling us a bit about the school and where it is and how many students you've got?
Of course. We are the Prince of Wales School, and we're in the county town of Dorchester. We currently have 157 pupils on roll, serving children from reception through to year 4. And we also have an on-site preschool of around 60 children. The school has some specialist characteristics in that it has a unit role for children with physical disabilities. And we have up to 10 children on roll each year that come from across the county to our provision on site. And they are fully integrated into our mainstream environment. Typically, these children have physical conditions such as cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, spinal bifida, and we work closely to support their needs in our mainstream classroom environments. We have been a G Suite for Education or Google for Education school since around 2012, and we use Chromebooks as our predominant device in the classroom.
So lots to explore and talk about in today's webinar. I just want to say before we get into the detail, for anyone who's watching, if you've got any questions for Gary, apart from what colour he's going to be wearing next in his outfits, feel free to get your questions in the chat. So if you're watching us live on YouTube, you can go into chat and leave a comment. And at various points through today's webinar, we will jump back in, if that's all right with you, Gary, and we will do some questions from the audience watching. But I know we're going to start by sharing your screen in and talking a little bit about what happened and sort of the processes that you went through as we went into lockdown.
Yeah, so today I just thought we'd start really where we all found ourselves, which was in a place of shock, I think it's fair to say, when Boris on that Monday evening at 8 o'clock made his announcement to the country. I think, like lots of schools, we felt that a second period of national lockdown for schools, I appreciate it was a third national lockdown if we include the time of Christmas as well, but from the school's perspective, the second lockdown was coming, but we didn't expect it. Certainly, I didn't expect it to be happening the very next morning. So just like everyone else, as a head teacher, I was sat there at 8 o'clock watching the announcement, and that came through that all schools had to be closed. Instantly, we set about providing clear communication to our families. In fact, while Boris was still talking, I put this message out to say to our families that, well, look, we've got clear contingency plans in place, and we'll be making direct communication with everyone tonight to let them know what will be happening. And essentially, because of the systems that we built using G Suite and making platforms available through Google Sites, we actually had a ready-made solution ready to go. And I'll just talk you through that in a moment. So Boris finished speaking about 25 past 8, and by 25 to 9, we had communicated to all of our parents, both through social media and direct email communication, to say, here is the learning for your children over the next 5 days. It's there, it's ready to go, open it up, crack on, basically. And that instantly provided a bit of calm in what was a stormy situation. And basically how we did that is by making use of resources that were already available, and by having our own distance learning school made using Google Sites. So I'm just going to go across to our website, princeofwales.dorset.sch.uk, and you'll see on the front there's my official school photograph, and there's a link through to our distance learning website. And our distance learning website, as it states on the front here, differed from the provision that we ran from March 2020 through to the end of July. And if you want to find out a little bit more about that, you can click on this virtual school link. Notice the difference between virtual school and distance school. And this was a completely separate microsite that was for lockdown 1. And essentially, what we did in lockdown 1 is we used Google Slides to collaborate as a whole school and build a whole school timetable. And we did that from the moment they went off last time. And the main feedback we had from our parents was that they loved what we did previously. They loved having a range of different tasks, but ultimately we needed to drill down a bit further and get year group specific information out and available. Now, in fairness, in the second lockdown period, obviously there was a lot more guidance from the government and what was expected in terms of remote education. And we were keen to respond to that and push the bar ourselves as well. So what we actually put together, and was a site. In fact, if I go into the edit mode, you can see what it looks like from an admin point of view, how we created this using Google Sites. And what we had done back in September and October time is created this for the scenario where a child was isolating at home because they perhaps have COVID symptoms. So what we found in a large number of cases was that children might develop a cough or a temperature, and as a result, they would have to wait for a COVID test. At the time, it was going to a centre or receiving a pack in the post for the PCR testing. And in many cases, well, in fact, almost all the cases we had, those children then came back with a negative test result, and they were maybe away from school for 3 to 4 days. And we found at that moment in time, it wasn't appropriate to run lessons that were synchronized with what was happening in the classroom. Because the need was actually on the children that were in the class predominantly. And in many cases, we'd have, say, 29 children in the classroom and 1 child at home, who historically, if they were off ill, we wouldn't have provided home learning, but actually we wanted to provide something because in a sense they were fine, they just had a cough. So we created this site originally for that purpose, and we first of all created these ISO packs. So year 1, ISO 1 was created in Google Sites. And inside here, we pre-populated it with videos saying, hello, welcome to Distance Learning website, Mr. Sprackton here. We've got some great learning for you over the next 5 days, etc. And we also embedded our ALSA approach, so some emotional literacy support, into the site as well. And these were just videos we produced and then uploaded to YouTube, and they were available for every child when they went into this area. And this, at the time, we were only sharing details about the Distance Learning website with children that had phoned in waiting for a COVID test result and feeling fine at home. We then created timetables, which are very much embedding core skills, and we created 2 timetables, one for day 1 to day 5. We importantly didn't label them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We labeled them 1 to 5, so it didn't matter what day of the week the children went off. They knew that the first day off, they had to complete day 1 learning. And this was making use of resources that were freely available, making use of the Oak National Academy, of subscriptions that we pay for, like Timetable Rockstars and Purple Mash, and content that we had generated for Lockdown 1. So some of the P lessons linked off to YouTube videos we'd made for Lockdown 1. And this really was here as a buffer. essentially. In addition to the buffer, we also created what we call the star packs. So these have been relabeled since, but the star packs used to sit in the menu underneath here. And the great thing within Google Sites is that you can actually hide a page. So just by clicking the 3 buttons here, I could hide from the navigation and essentially make that page invisible for the students. So we pre-populated week 1. We pre-populated something known as the star pack. And that meant that no children, even those children had been off because they had symptoms of COVID, had not accessed the star packs of learning. And the original intention of producing these was just in case a bubble burst, this material will be ready to go, because it may well be the teacher who's unwell and they can't produce the content. So we prepared this in advance. And actually, when Boris was standing up on that Monday night, announcing that the schools were closed, what I was actually doing while he was speaking was going in and clicking here and going show in navigation and rename that page week 1. So straight away we had 5 days of learning ready and packed to go, and it included videos from me saying, we are where we are in this situation, but look, we've done this fantastic pack of learning for you. And that was just there ready to go. And what that created for us as a community was a buffer, again, between that first announcement, and it gave my teachers time to resource the next days of learning. And that site was then used as a vehicle to deliver that. And what it meant was that on the very first day, you know, just over 12 hours after Boris made his announcement, we had children accessing distance learning from home, and we knew that was quality and it was age appropriate, and it just gave a great sense of we're in this together and we know what we're doing, which at the time we were responding on the hoof. That coupled with us pushing our technology out into the classrooms, and both in lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, we've made the devices available that we had in our trolleys instantly accessible. The G Suite platform allows you to do that simply using the admin console. So I had one TA that was stationed on our front door with a table. People came, said they needed a device. We just relabeled them and sent them straight out the door. And that worked really, really effectively. And with it, by 10:30, we deployed something like 100 Chromebooks into family homes. Again, a matter of hours after the announcement had made. We coupled that with also learning out the tables and chairs, because we feel it's really important that you create a good learning environment for children when they're at home. And as you see on that first picture, you know, in some cases, children would be coming downstairs in the morning. Many of our children still like to keep their uniform on. We don't make it an expectation by any means, but some of them like to keep their uniform on. So they would come downstairs in their uniform. They would, in some cases, not in these pictures, but come up to a school table and chair, and they'd sit down at their Chromebook. So there's a lot of familiarity there for the young people to engage and work through on their learning. And what essentially we had is, in the first 5 days, we had just the most tremendous learning being shared. And we produced, as part of the work that we've done in lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, we've been doing 3 times a day broadcast using a similar platform to what we're broadcasting on today to you. And that provided a sense of community, an opportunity to share learning and discuss learning, and really have some fun together, which was a key part of our lockdown learning. As we went forward, and I won't show all these slides because this really is just an overview, but our teachers started building their own content. They made use of Loom to record videos and then embed those into Google Docs, which then went into the Google Sites. We're working with predominantly younger children here. So being a first school, obviously reception through to year 4. Our older classes, 2, 3, 4, also use Google Classroom, and work was being shared on there. We opted not to go down a live learning route because we felt we didn't want children sat in front of a screen all day. We wanted to inspire them with their learning. We feel it's really important that we don't see children needing to catch up with anything, but instead catch on with learning. And a big focus for us was making sure that learning was at the heart of everything we did, and that it remained inspiring and engaging in our approach. So that was very much the angle that we took. We created little studio booths to support our staff making online content, just purchasing higher quality webcams to link into their Chromebooks, and adding in some professional microphones. Just kind of, not only did it make for higher quality content, it kind of showed the teachers that we're investing in the importance of them making great content for their pupils. And yes, there's lots of other stuff out there, but the feedback we were having from our pupils is that they loved that it was their teachers teaching them, and that sense of relationship was really important in all that they did. Andrew shared some of my fancy dress costumes earlier. We actually introduced the concept of United Colours of Power, and each Thursday in my live broadcast at 4 o'clock, I would have a big colour wheel behind me, a bit like the Wheel of Fortune, I suppose, and I would spin it to determine what colour everyone would wear the next day. So our first United Colours of Power day was indeed yellow, and all the children dressed up in yellow. And again, it was an opportunity for us to feel connected and be a community, even though we were apart. And throughout the 6-7 weeks, we wore different colours every Friday. Critically, we did it at 4 o'clock, so people couldn't go out and buy anything. They had to find something they already had at home, even if it was a pair of socks or a scarf. And we just had fun with it, really. Going back to the materials that we've developed through Google Sites, we've had fun and done things in different ways. We've launched our own virtual library using Google Slides. So this is just a Google slideshow that's presenting in web view. And this links off to different stories. So we've got our Power Nori storytelling. So it just works via a hyperlink. And this connects through to a range of content that we'd filmed a couple of years ago, actually, and used for a book week. And actually, the children have really loved exploring their own virtual library full of inspiring content. This is just loading at the moment, so it'll come through in a second. But it's a great way to kind of connect people and do different things. So this is our Power Nori storytelling, and you can click on a book cover and it'll take you through to the book. In this case, Series 1, Episode 23 of our Power Nori storytelling service. And there's me looking very animated. Look.
Hello, I'm Mr. Sprackton, and today I'm going to read one of my favourite stories, Hairy McClary from Donaldson's Dairy.
You can watch that back if you want another time, but there's just one example of something that we've done. We've also, like I said, we've embedded our approach to supporting children's emotional development through our virtual program as well, and we've got extensive ALSA resources available on our microsites, including a slideshow that's been collaboratively put together, making use of various expertise that we have across the school, thinking about how we can ensure a moment of mindfulness each day. And the children are encouraged to engage with that as part of their distance learning. We also created a soundboard. We're working with young children, and we're working with children with a range of special educational needs and disabilities. And I actually need to view this. Actually, let's view the published site on this one. And it was really important for the children to feel connected through all sorts of different ways, and obviously a sensory approach is part of that, and having an auditory connection as well. So we created a soundboard using Google Slides, and just sentences they might hear around school, Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone.
Fantabulous!
We had a great response from this.
High five, scuba dive.
And just a bit of fun, really, was had with it, and connected up in different ways. So, a whole range of different things, really, used in all sorts of different ways. Andrew.
Thanks, firstly, for sharing how that worked, Gary. And I will remind everybody, of course, now's a great time to pop some questions in the chat if there's anything you want to ask. But I've got some questions initially I'm going to ask anyway while we're waiting for questions to come in. So just to go back through that, why did you choose Google Sites over maybe some of the other tools?
I think for me, the power of Google Sites was that ease to publish things directly to the web. If you can use a Google Doc, then you can use Google Sites, and instantly you can publish content out there. And it just really gave a professional feeling to what we were doing. There was I think that ability, I've been using Google products for a long time now, but it's sometimes easy to underestimate that power of collaboration. And Google Sites, like all Google tools, has got collaboration built at the heart of it. And what it meant is that multiple people could contribute their ideas, teachers could share across year groups to ensure the very best provision for our young people.
And then in terms of video content, then you went for a YouTube approach. Is that what we're seeing there?
Yeah, so we like to meet our parents where they're at with video, particularly through the live broadcasting. So we've actually made use of product called StreamYard to broadcast out to multiple channels. And we were, with our live broadcasts each day that we were doing, we did a 9 o'clock Good Morning Power Show. We did an 11:20 whole school assembly. And then we did a 4 o'clock Today at Power broadcast. And we shared those through YouTube, through Periscope, and through Facebook. And they were very much community events, just like you might have, I don't know, your summer fair, or you might have, you know, your Christmas performances. We were doing that, but 3 times a day to bring everyone together. And we had people commenting and contributing, but we were very cautious and mindful of what we were sharing because it was a public environment. We knew that anyone could be watching. Away from that, we had more private conversations using Google Hangouts. So as part of Classroom, you know, teachers got together. We actually found that different setups worked for different purposes. So at times we did whole class Hangouts, and you know, we had some quizzes, and we did things like little treasure hunts and hide and seek, and you know, games, and you know, some direct learning as well through that platform. But actually we found often grouping children in groups of 6 or 7 for maybe a social circle, or you know, a particular intervention, what was more effective in terms of being able to everyone to have a voice. So, and equally there were times where we just wanted them to be able to switch on the camera, have a bit of a giggle, have a wave, you know, pull some silly faces. That was just as important at times as that kind of direct instruction. So it's about finding the right balance for the children that you're working with and the type of activity. And actually, I think the most effective things we did was setting up regular social groups of no more than maybe 7 or 8, so that they could touch base with the teacher, they could ask questions to each other, and everyone was given a voice. And that can be really hard when you've got 31 tiles up, but actually with 6 or 7, it can be really effective.
And it's been really interesting to see with a lot of schools how over time, as we've gone through both lockdowns, schools have slid away from like work, here's this assignment, here's this piece of work, towards that concept around the social aspects, and how you can use the tools for that.
Yeah, to me, it's the most important thing. You know, I want my children to come back and move forward with the right mindset, with the right, being in the right place physically and mentally, you know, from a health point of view, to be successful. And I don't think we can underestimate the importance of that. Children's emotional well-being and mental health development doesn't come second place to their academic development. It's the first building block, and we've got to get that right. And we've definitely placed a lot of emphasis on that. We've done all sorts of things through lockdown. We've done dance competitions. You know, we've done quizzes. We've done anything you can. We've done virtual festivals. We've had open mic nights. You know, again, all of it has been focused on community. We're in this together. We're going to move forward together. And obviously today is a great celebration of that because we are back together physically again.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does this translate now that you're back in school? Are the bits you're going to keep? Are there some things that are staying?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're continuing with our 11:20 daily broadcast for assembly. And actually the great thing about those is that using a virtual platform has been so easy to bring in external guests, and we've had more external guests in our assemblies than we've ever had before. We actually had a live link with a penguin enclosure at a zoo in West Wales, which was just fabulous, and the children were able to ask questions to the penguin keepers. We had live dog agility in one assembly, which is a bit like the generation game in that some things went wrong, but it was fun. You know, there was all sorts of things going on. We've linked with authors and artists and, you know, all sorts of things like that. I think the feedback model has been so effective through the virtual platforms as well. We've been making use of voice comments and verbal feedback. In fact, the majority of feedback I've done when work's been sent to me has been done verbally, because I found it a lot easier. Actually, the way I've been managing my workload is having, because I've actually encouraged every child to send me every piece of work they've done. They haven't all done that, thankfully, but those that have wanted to have. And I would say each day between 50 to 60 students have sent me work, and I've responded to every single one of those in both lockdown 1 and lockdown 2 with an audio comment. And what I do is as my email signature, and sometimes if you email me, I apologize, I'll email you back going, thank you so much for sharing your work with me, because I'll forget to delete my signature or switch it to my professional signature. But actually, I've been making use of a GIF that says something like, "You're awesome." And then I've put, "Thank you for sharing your work with me. I'll be sharing this evening or I'll be sharing this in my next broadcast. do tune in to watch. And please see attached for a personal comment. And then those personal comments have always been done through an audio recorder, and I've just reattached them as an email attachment, and it's just worked perfectly. And it's been so simple and straightforward. But the response from that personal, "Hi Jimmy, I love what you did with that drawing. Could you try this next?" Or "Have you thought about entering this?" Most of the time, that takes me maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And the feedback from parents and children has been great. So definitely more use of verbal feedback in all sorts of different ways. And I think we're still at the start of the journey of us unlocking the potential of verbal feedback and voice in education. I think there's so much opportunity there as we move forward to really utilize that, even in the classroom setting, so that parents hear the verbal feedback that was given to the child, because we know that personal approach is the most important for our young people, way ahead of anything else. So yeah, for me, verbal feedback, getting external guests into assemblies, definitely. We've also been doing, aside from the classroom approach, we've also been running a range of training for our governors via virtual platforms. And actually our governance move to an electronic platform is definitely something we want to keep hold of, making use of Google Hangout for, you know, county-wide governor training. And it could, obviously, the fact that it's virtual, it could be country-wide or continent-wide training, couldn't it? You know, it's the possibilities are limitless when we make use of the tools effectively. So for me, a broader reach for all sorts of CPD has been really powerful through this, and obviously a huge reduction in travel costs, and, you know, cut back on the sandwiches, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe the lunch on courses will be the one thing we will miss. I must admit, there does seem to be an acceptance now, doesn't there, of virtual learning and virtual platforms, and the fact that CPD can be delivered as we're doing today, like through YouTube, and that move is probably there to stay.
Yeah, and I think don't get me wrong, there'll still be the need for some physical events, but I think those will change in nature because of the effectiveness of other platforms for this kind of delivery. And it might mean that when people come together, they'll be maybe problem solving more, or they'll be creating more, because the generic input can be delivered remotely, and then other things can come. So I think, don't get me wrong, you know, there's still going to be a need for physical events and physical things, but I think they will change in nature as well. I think that's only a positive thing.
Yeah, and it's glad to hear those positives coming out. We have got some questions coming in now. So just a reminder to everybody watching, you can put questions for Gary in the chat, whatever you choose to ask. I know that Graham from Leo Academies is watching today, and he's agreeing with you about external guests in lockdown. And he's got a big range of schools working with him in his primary trust. So hi, Graham. But it has been interesting to see that sort of growth of people coming in. You're right, and I hope that continues. Question from Jess in the chat about which has been your students' favourite engagement piece. What do they get the most excited? What do you get the most views on?
So we've been doing some weekly videos that our staff have been putting together and sharing. And those are definitely the students' favourite time of the week when we put those together. So in this lockdown, we did Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. We did, and obviously there's lots of fancy dress costumes involved. We did ABBA Dancing Queen. We did a bit of a Friday mega mix. But actually, I think the other things that have got the most response really is actually when we set whole school challenges. So we've done writing competitions, we've done art competitions. And actually, again, it's that sense of that we can take on something together. And obviously, siblings, you know, at home, if they can both engage in something. We've supported that with physical resource delivery packs. So as well as all the virtual stuff that we've done, every week we've gone out to each home and we've delivered them a pack. And my favourite ones have been, actually from lockdown one, my favourite one was the teddy bear zip wire challenge, which was as simple as me giving every family 5 meters of string and a paper clip and say, can you make a zip wire? And the response we had from that, or the videos that we had back, we've actually put in this on our YouTube channel. You can see the teddy bear zip wire challenge. And then we then built upon that with some science input, and we then did some writing about it. And actually that kind of just some simple things, that simple spark of inspiration can be really powerful. Most recently we did a catapult challenge. There's a lot of kind of physical throwing things obviously involved with inspired learning, but we set the children a challenge of seeing if they could fire an object higher than themselves using just lollipop sticks and elastic bands. And that was great, seeing the response from that. And again, I think that would have been great if we just shared it in the post, but it was enhanced because we then could see each other's work and we could comment on it and we could critique it and we could try and beat it. And there was an element of competition there. And actually, that wouldn't be happening without the platforms that we have available to us. It would just be if we just sent it in the post, some lollipops and an elastic band, some children might engage with it, some might not. But if they were tuning in each day at 4 o'clock to see who had taken it to another level, and it's probably fair to say some parents took it to another level rather than the children. But it's community-wide learning. One parent, incredible production. But there we go. But actually, there's great power in coming together and sharing, and that's what has been at the heart of our response to this second lockdown in particular.
Yeah, there is that, as I think through my own daughter and how she would probably be competitive and wanting to have the best video stroke, aerial runway stroke, teddy bear piece. I do imagine there was that level of competition from students and parents. That's great to see. We're going to put a short video on to show actually different, Graham had mentioned earlier from Leo and some of their learning in lockdown. But this also gives us a small break for people to have a few moments to put questions in chat. So this video is your chance to get questions for Gary into the chat. So feel free to put any questions you are answering in the chat, and we'll be back ever so shortly.
This journey began a few years ago when we came together to develop a digital strategy to breathe new life into the way that staff work, that teachers teach, and ultimately the way that children learn.
It was really important for us to think about how are we making sure we're providing the very best teaching to all of the children in our schools.
We very much wanted to move forwards with cloud-based technology.
But we had to have an infrastructure suitable for children, but it also had to be useful for staff as well. What we decided to do was provide every child with their own Chromebook, and we adopted G Suite for Education, and then before we knew it, the magic really started to happen.
Okay, 3LS, I would like you to log into Google Classroom.
It's had a really transformational impact on the school.
Children embrace Google technology like a duck to water.
It was really easy once you got the hang of it. It was just really fun.
They're a lot more focused, they find the lessons a lot more fun, and the engagement just went through the roof.
Staff were able to get going quickly.
We were given time to just try things out for ourselves, and I think that was a really important stage of the process. It's reduced my workload massively, and I know more about my children.
At no point had we ever thought that Chromebooks for one-to-one would be a solution to a global pandemic.
But compared to other schools, our children and staff were used to working in the cloud, and through the use of Google Classroom and Google Sites, we were able to switch learning online and deliver lessons from day one of the lockdown.
Remember, you're figuring out what the value of the 9 is.
We worked quickly to ensure that every family had access to the internet.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to another day of home learning.
Being at home, you don't see anybody.
I miss the support from teachers.
You're distracted with your siblings and your dog, and it's just really, it's annoying.
Children's well-being was really, really important to us.
We communicated with all of our parents on a daily basis.
We arranged Google Meets where we drop in with the children.
Can you think of something good that's happened because of lockdown?
I'm spending more time with my family.
Great answer, Vassy. Thank you for that.
Within that first week, Google Meets had happened, children were laughing together on screen. It was totally surreal, but while the buildings were physically closed, the school was open. The whole concept of a digital classroom and a digital school is exciting.
If we can provide them with those real basic digital skills now, we're really preparing them for their adult lives.
So great to see some learning there from Leo and some similarities, actually, quite a few similarities between the setup, I think, at both sets of schools there.
Absolutely, and it's brilliant to hear the work they're doing there. And it's so true, isn't it, that the buildings were closed, but the school is open, and the potential that provides moving forward is just so exciting. And what a brilliant set of children they've got there, and how confident they talk about how they've been using the platform. And I think, for me, Andrew, we're now working with a golden generation. A group of children that have been through adversity but have triumphed through it. And I'm not a big fan of this narrative at the moment that children have got loads to catch up on, and that they somehow have got huge challenges to now overcome. I think they've overcome the challenge by engaging in learning in the way that they have remotely, and that has brought them so many new skills and such a breadth in understanding. I think we're going to see a real creative generation come forward. Definitely a generation that can cook their banana bread, and all those sorts of things. No, in all seriousness, I think there's a huge shift now that we really will benefit from, and that's not taking away the challenges that we've had as well, and the challenges around mental health and isolation and the economic challenges. But actually, we can get way down with those. When I look at the children I'm working with, I just see so much hope, so much potential, so much resilience that they've shown through this period to really engage with learning. And I think if I looked at myself, those years ago when I was at primary school, I can't imagine putting myself in the scenario where they've been in, where the school has been closed and they've had to engage with learning in a different way. But they've just adapted to it so well. They've shown such resilience and such engagement, and it really excites me about what they may go on and do in the future. And it's my privilege to work for them each day.
And that's been great to hear. Thank you, Gary. I was going to ask an additional question, which is, and I've asked lots of people this question already, if it all happened again, and we always hope it doesn't, would you do anything differently? Was there anything you did? And I know you talked a little bit about the changes from lockdown 1 to lockdown 2, but was there anything you think actually we put a lot of time into this and it didn't really pay off? Yeah,
I think we would continually tweak what we're seeking to do. I think we would probably do a little more live learning next time, but not necessarily on a whole class basis, just on a smaller group basis. I think the challenge we had is that we still had a third of our children coming into key worker school each day and had to staff that with lower staff levels than we would normally be used to because of this, reasons that everyone else had, people needing to isolate, etc. So I think, building that capacity and that competence in our team, our staff are already in a strong place, but I think they're in an even stronger place now to continue to provide that variety in approach to learning. So I think just more variety, and I think more responsiveness to the individuals in the class, just seeking to continually evolve what we do. And that's very much what was the difference between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. We reflect on what we did. Lockdown 1, the major concern we had was around writing, because we follow schemes of work in reading and we follow schemes of work in maths. So we knew that those were going to tick on because of the nature of you've got textbook page to do each day. And actually, we tried to introduce more inspiring content into the writing, but the parents didn't necessarily know what was the expected level. And that's why we made changes this time in how we approached it, because last time we used content to inspire the children. There'd be a dramatic image and it would say what happened next, and a child might go, they died, and that was the contents of their literacy work for that day, rather than actually we wanted you to write the next 3 paragraphs. We needed to be more specific so the parents knew where the level of expectation was. And obviously that can be quite hard because it can depend upon the differentiation within the class and things like that. So we learned from that, and we developed our practice this time so that we had a stronger approach to literacy. And I think we would seek to do that in more areas next time as well. So yeah, none of us hope it will happen again, but the reality that it might is probably higher than we would all expect, and sadly. So we will learn and we will grow and we will continue to embed our digital approach in all that we do.
Well, it's been great to hear from you today, Gary, and for the impact that's having. And it's also great to see how you're using the tools and how you're evaluating their use consistently, and just using that to drive forward. And for me, the strong piece is around community, and it's really good to hear that you're enabling that homeschool connection to continue. So that's been wonderful to hear as we go through. I'm going to give a few more slides that I'm going to present, but I'm also going to give a little bit of time for any final questions to come in the chat, because there have been various comments coming in. But I just wanted to run through just some key aspects. So you can stay around, Gary, for this, but I'll just remind everybody that obviously we've been talking today about the use of Google for Education's tools. And we've talked heavily about sites and the use that sites brings. And that's one of the suite of tools. It'd be interesting actually to find out which other ones you're using. So I know you mentioned that Google Classroom is there with some year groups. And then we have Google Meet. And then, of course, doc sheets and slides, the underlying productivity tools. And then some that sit more behind the scenes, Google Forms. Have you got much use of Google Forms, Gary?
Yeah, we use Google Forms extensively, all sorts of different things. So whether it's collecting staff details or doing questionnaires or book reviews with the young people. We've done virtual postcards before using Google Forms. That's a good thing to do when, especially during the summer holidays, we want a little writing project. The children can send their staff a virtual postcard, and then we can share those on blogs and things like that as well. So yeah, just an awesome tool, really.
And then obviously across to some of our communication tools like Gmail and Calendar. And then finally the saving tools like Google Drive. And then finally one that a lot of people forget about, which is Google Jamboard as a big interactive whiteboard space. And so again,
we've been using Jamboard recently across our partnership of schools. So we work here in Dorchester. We have the Dorchester Area Schools Partnership working across 21 different schools. And we've been revisiting our vision statements recently. We've been collaborating using Jamboard to do that, and it's great. It's a great tool for lots of people coming together and working out problems.
Wonderful. Well, great to hear about that tool use. I just want to move on and give a few reminders. We talked about Google Sites, so I'll skip this slide. And just to say a few final pointers. So the first thing is, this is the first webinar, but in a series of webinars. So don't forget, you can join us next week on Monday again at the same time, when we're going to be looking at almost, I won't say the opposite, because I think there'll be a lot of similarities between the two, but how in a secondary level, the Rivers Learning Trust have deployed G Suite across their huge network of schools. So going from our primary all the way through to a big secondary deployment. So Roger Nixon, who a lot of us know, is joining me next Monday to look at deploying Google for Education at scale. And again, that, along with lots of other events, and there's just this, as Gary said, as we move to accepting webinars as a great way of learning, there's just a huge number of webinars coming up from Google for Education in the UK. And you can find all that information at bit.ly/GFE UK events. So don't forget, you can register for other sessions, and we pop the link in the chat there, should you want to register for next week or any of the other upcoming sessions. And all of these sessions stay recorded on YouTube, so you can watch it back at any time. So if you want to go back and see, watch Gary's site or see those wonderful pictures of Gary from earlier on in his multicolored costumes, then you can watch back at any time on the website. And we're in the show and tell area for these webinars. So don't forget, you can visit that there. And that's one of a range of resources that Google for Education have made to support teachers at this time. So in addition to that, we have the Teach From Anywhere site at teachfromanywhere.google, which is a hub of information that talks about how to deliver online learning. So if you want your teachers want to upskill, Teach From Anywhere is a great place to visit. And in addition to that, we have the Teacher Centre at g.co/Teacher Centre, where they can find out more either by looking by products. If you want to learn more about Classroom, or maybe you want to copy what Gary's done and focus your training on sites, you can learn by product, but you can also learn at a much bigger level through the certifications. And we have Google Certified Educator Level 1 and Level 2 that teachers can take in. And above that, our Trainer, Innovator and Coach programs. So a whole range there of training should teachers want to do more online training and develop their Google skills further. So that's just some additional information if you want to follow up on after today's webinar. So it just leaves me really firstly to have a big thank you to Gary for joining us and taking us through the use of G Suite. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for the opportunity. And it's great to be able to collaborate and hear about other schools' fantastic use of G Suite for Education. And I'm going to be tuning in future weeks to hear for sure.
There is, as always, an evaluation form that you can fill in. So we will drop the evaluation form in the chat. If you want to give us some feedback on today's session, that would be great. We're also trying to make sure over the coming weeks we cover a range of different reference schools. So we have both primary, secondary, college, and multi-academy trusts from all around the UK within our reference school program. So if you want to hear about how they're using the Google tools, feel free to join us in future weeks. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Gary, for your input today. We'll leave you to go home, pick a new colour, and get changed into another amazing outfit. But for now, we'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, guys.